Karate friends, welcome to Classics in Color, your weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves, and today I'm going to be talking about adult breastfeeding in ancient Rome. So I was researching something entirely different from this, and somehow this article popped up in my face, and I had to read it, and then I had to share it with you guys. Very fascinating stuff. So first, a little bit of science about breast milk as far as they understood it in the ancient world. We have Aristotle from the 4th century BC writing about how menstrual fluid and breast milk and semen are all basically the same thing. So they're all the same. The only difference is that through being heated by the body, they become more concentrated. And the idea is, not just in Aristotle, but generally throughout the ancient world, that female bodies are cooler than male bodies. So a female body, at its coolest, produces menstrual blood, and then if it heats up a little, it can turn that into breast milk, and then in a man's body, because it's so hot, it cooks it. They literally use the word for cook. It cooks it all the way and turns that into semen. So it's really interesting that those three things are all considered to be the same thing. And we also have a Hippocratic treatise that basically agrees with all that breast milk is just menstrual fluid. So I guess for them that made it healthier because there was the connection to blood, of course, which is a really important fluid in the body. But to me, that just seems extremely gross. Now, because breast milk was connected to blood and all this, it was considered not only very healthy, but had a lot of uses in the ancient world as well. So in Hippocrates' treatise, or it's on Bareness, we don't know for sure if it was written by Hippocrates, but the writer, whoever he is, advises that a woman's fertility can be tested by feeding her milk and butter that has been made from breast milk, from human breast milk. And you give this concoction to her, and if she burps, then she is pregnant, and if she does not, then she is not pregnant. So there is an ancient pregnancy test for you all. That is lovely. And later in these same treaties, he gives a recipe for this bread that you can make out of breast milk, and depending on how the bread turns out, the woman is either going to have a boy or a girl. So there's also a gender test that you can get from breast milk, which is fabulous. Then in Celsus de Medicina, so Celsus is a medical writer from quite a bit later, 1st century AD, and he's a Roman. He indicates that breast milk has a lot of medicinal uses. So if you have an inflammation in your eyes, it can work on that, and of the ears, and it can even be given to someone to induce menstruation, which kind of makes sense if you think that breast milk and menstruation are the same thing. Maybe giving you one would kind of help you produce more of the other, but that is Celsus's take on the matter. And then Pliny gives a list of things that breast milk can cure: fevers, bowel diseases, nausea, poisonous toad juices, ear ailments, jaundice, gout, etc. You kind of get the idea. Apparently it's this great cure-all. And later Pliny actually says that women's milk is the sweetest and most delicate of all, especially if she has weaned her infant. It is especially efficacious if she has just given birth to a boy, or even better, twin boys, and she abstains from wine and foods that are especially acrid. So it sounds a little like Pliny's been going around testing people's breast milk. I don't know, but he clearly has some strong opinions on this. So we have quite a few authors, telling us about how healthy and amazing breast milk is, and comparing the qualities and tastes of it as well. Women in the ancient world didn't always breastfeed their own kids, especially if they were at least somewhat wealthy. Often you would give them to a wet nurse, a slave, or a servant, or just hire someone temporarily to do that for you. But occasionally women would breastfeed their own kids, even if they didn't have to, and they would get a lot of praise from Roman authors for doing this. Basically, what a great mom, going the extra mile. So there was a lot of praise for them. But there was also praise for women who breastfed their own parents, which is But it wasn't just in any old circumstances. You didn't just, hey, mom, do you want some? It was when their parents were in dire straits, they were starving, usually in prison, and the daughter was considered to be both very clever and very loyal for doing this for her parent. And it wasn't really seen as something that was creepy or sexual. it was just good for her for being so loyal to her family, which is an important value in ancient Rome. So I'm going to read you a story of this happening that we have from Pliny, and it's a bit long, so hang in there, but it goes, of filial affection there have, it is true, been unlimited instances all over the world, but one at Rome with which the whole of the rest could not compare. A plebeian woman, that just means like common, of low position, yeah, there you go, and therefore unknown, who had just given birth to a child, had permission to visit her mother, who had been shut up in prison as a punishment, and was always searched in advance by the doorkeeper to prevent her carrying in any food. She was detected giving her mother sustenance from her own breasts. In consequence of this marvel, the daughter's pious affection was rewarded by the mother's release, and both were awarded maintenance for life. And the place where it occurred was consecrated to the goddess concerned, a temple dedicated to filial affection being built on the site of the prison. So you can see here that the Romans were very impressed by this, and they immediately released the mother, and they built a temple to honor this thing that the daughter did. And we have a couple other stories of daughters doing this for fathers as well, not just for mothers. And we even have a wall painting in Naples that depicts a daughter feeding her father in this way, and it comes with a poetic inscription sort of by this painting. So it says, "What food the mother was accustomed to offer to her newborns, unkind fortune turned to food for her father. It is a task fit for eternity. Look how the slender veins of Pero herself draws her face close to my son and caresses him. A sad sense of shame, together with piety, is present in this picture." We even have some Etruscan depictions of Hera nursing an adult Heracles in what is maybe a depiction of like a ritual adoption, because she's hated him for so long and she's finally accepting him. But anyway, we have several of these stories in various levels of detail, and we even have some visual depictions of this happening, not just on one occasion, but on several, and it's always seen as something that's very good and praised. And the author of this article finally points out that at the end of that Pliny story, when they erect the temple in honor of this great occasion, there is a pillar that we've actually found that is by a temple of piety. So piety is a very important Roman value, and there's not really an English word for this, but it's respect for others, particularly your family, the state, the gods, that you have the necessary respect, devotion, relationship with them. And it can be at all those different levels. So not just to gods or not just to family, it's sort of all of them. And in this case, probably particularly to your family, because this is in memorial of this daughter who was so pious towards her mother. So it's by this temple of piety, and we have this column that is called the Columna Lactaria, which literally means, milk column. And it seems like this was a gathering place for selling and buying milk. So if you were a wet nurse, you might go there to try to get hired. That's where people would find you. And people even sold breast milk in jars, so you didn't have to hire a wet nurse necessarily. You could just buy a jar of the stuff, and mostly this was probably for infants, but like we saw, it had all these medicinal uses as well, so people may have either hired a wet nurse or probably bought a jar of this breast milk for adult consumption. So that is breast milk for adult consumption in ancient Rome. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and thank you to subscribers and Patreon members. I will see you next week with another video. Kaurete.